Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'm Tanner Watt. I'm a municipal program specialist with Local Authority Services, and I'm joined today by Matt Leonardini, Canadian Commercial Account Manager for Gilbarco. So Matt's going to be presenting on some new techniques to help municipalities safely and efficiently manage their fuel depots. Gilbarco's services are available through the Canoe Procurement Group, which helps to lower costs and simplify procurement for municipalities. We have a few additional webinars planned for this fall, including drone technology and fleet electrification. I'll drop a link for registering for those ones in the chat box in a moment. A couple little housekeeping notes. We are recording this webinar and we'll be sending out a copy of the video archive to everybody who registered likely this afternoon. And for the Q&A, after Matt's done presenting, we'll do a Q&A that's going to use the Q&A function built into Zoom. At the bottom of your screen, there'll be a little box with a Q&A button on it. Click on that, and you can type in a question at any time throughout the presentation. Once Matt's finished, we will go through them one by one and get some answers for you. We'll also be sending out a survey with the follow-up email. This just helps us make sure that these webinars are doing what the viewers need them to do. So if you can take the time to fill that out, we would appreciate it. So with that, I will hand it off to Matt.
Thanks, Tanner. Thanks, everybody, for joining today. Again, it's Matt Leonardini with Gilbarco. Our contract number, just for your reference, if you want to write it down, is 092920-GVR. So appreciate the attendance, and we'll get right into it so we can be efficient. So I've been with Gilbarco about 18 years on the fuel management side of the business. Really, it's an exciting opportunity to talk to you guys today about some of the new technologies and techniques that we have. We're offering a free assessment of your fuel facilities. If you're interested in looking at or costing out AVI for your facilities, you can reach me at the email above or at my cell phone number. I am based here in Toronto, but I do cover the entire country. So feel free to reach out to me after the seminar or at any time during the next year or so. So today's agenda is pretty quick. We're going to go through what is AVI, what challenges AVI addresses, and we're going to go through two case studies. I had many to pick from, but these were the two that I think will strike the most attention for the group. And then we'll have a chance to ask some questions and get some feedback from you. So we'll go right into the explanation and overview. So traditionally, fixed fuel site is pretty straightforward. You've got storage tanks. You've got some authorization methodology in either a pedestal format or an on-off switch for some of the smaller groups. You've got a dispense application, and that's pretty much the traditional fueling template, 30 to 40 years worth of that tradition. Where we come in and try to change the paradigm is on the fuel authorization. So for many of the municipalities I've worked with here in Canada, the traditional fob or a pin entry, some type of manual or semi-manual process has been the norm for a long, long time. And what we've done is introduce some new technology to the market that allows you to really rethink the way that you fuel your vehicles, collect data from the driver in the vehicles, and manage the back end or the reconciliation process for the use of your fuel. So we call it in the industry AVI. The product in the contract is called Fuel Point Plus. So AVI in general is automatic vehicle identification. And what that entails is a couple of components that communicate to each other in the fueling experience. And the authorization point then becomes the vehicle. And that's a big change and a big shift in how folks think about the fueling experience. Oftentimes, when you have a manual process, a log, or some other manual, semi-manual process, you have a driver walking to a pedestal, perhaps across an island or two, or just a simple island, engaging that pedestal, and then going through the process of authorizing the pump to start. With AVI, all of that becomes automatic at the point of fill. So it's a big step forward in terms of speed, safety, faster throughput, but at the end of the day, the most important thing, accurate data back to the back end of the business, the accounting teams and the operation teams that have to actually explain the use of the fuel. So within AVI, our product has two components. One is to automatically identify the vehicle at fueling. The second, the data pass, that collects odometer, engine hours, fault codes, and errors related to the asset itself. So when we think about AVI, think about that fueling experience and really changing it from a driver-centric, heavy manual input, reliant heavily on the operator to provide good, clean data, changing that whole paradigm to saying the asset is what we want to track. So we're going to let the asset tell us how much fuel it took, when it took it, and how much of that fuel is the right fuel. So with AVI, you're going to have the ability to, reduce unauthorized fueling. You're going to have the ability to make sure that you have 100% accuracy on the data coming off of that transaction. You're going to eliminate, and we get this a lot in Canada, cross fueling when you have a new driver. Putting diesel in a gasoline engine is not a good thing. It happens. So the ability to program these devices, lock them down to fuel types, and make sure that the fueling experience by the driver is simple, fast, and easy is super important. On the odometer side and on the engine hour capture, a lot of that is done manually, and if you're off by a digit or two, it really messes up your preventative maintenance schedule. So with AVI, you really can combine a lot of information into that fueling experience to make it simple, safe, and accurate. So on the fueling experience, this is an example of how that fueling experience looks. You have at the end of the spout, you have a nozzle reader. At the bottom of the fuel door, whether it's a police car, municipal sedan, could be DPW trucks as well. We have a fuel application for each of the types of vehicles that are out there. But it's as simple as putting the spout into the fill, having the devices communicate back to the pedestal, approve that device, and then have the dispense application turn on. So you're eliminating the walking to, you're eliminating the crossing islands, you're making it a faster, safer throughput for the operations team. So it really is insert, fuel, and go. These are the different applications. And again, if we do one-on-ones after the fact here, we would go through this in more detail. But we have a ring or a cube for every asset within your fleet to help control that dispense and control where the fuel goes and how much goes there. This is the most important part of the technology, is the data that comes off of it. So when you're thinking through, the back end process, if you're manually managing information and it's handwritten or in log format or Excel spreadsheets, it really becomes an end of month. Well, it's several days of unfun work. What AVI allows you to do is minimize that pain at the end of the month for your staff, for the administrators, for the accountants. It also helps create an accurate picture of what the fleet has done with their fuel for the week, the month, or the day. So if you look at the line items there, those are the transactions, the fuel that was dispensed for different vehicles in a fleet. You can see how accurate that is. It gives you good, clean information on the time of day, what type of vehicle, the driver, all of that information, because it's embedded in the AVI technology. It allows you this clean, accurate sheet that you can work from. And you'll notice that at the very top of that page, there's the ability to export this data out to the back-end system. So on the collection of the data, that's important. The ability to view the data, super important. But on the back end, to be able to import this into your back-end systems, that's the beauty. Now, RTA is a pretty well-known government back-end application, so we've got a custom build for that. So again, collecting the data on the fuel side is very simple, very easy. What you do with that data then becomes even easier because it's easy to manage accurate information. This is another example of kind of a reconciliation report by department. So again, chasing ghosts, chasing drivers for information, chasing transactions that have errors in them, those processes are eliminated, which is a huge benefit, not necessarily to the operation, but to the folks that have to manage the back end of that operation every day or every month. So super important to understand the flow of the data that comes off AVI and how it impacts the municipality operation. Now, in the second part of Fuel Point Plus is the ability to collect automatically your odometer readings, your engine hours. And this is really important, especially on the maintenance side of the business. So where you have, again, driver logs or you have manual input, if you're off by a digit on your odometer, that can throw off the schedule for PMI. And, you know, if you're not scheduled to get service on that engine because you've misentered your odometer, that could put at risk your assets within the fleet. We eliminate that completely by having the odometer go directly into the fueling transaction or a non-fueling transaction. That's the nice part about data passes. You don't have to be fueling for that information to pass through to the system. So it's a very a neat technology. We call it a passive telematics. So if you don't have telematics on board your vehicles today, this can be providing the data that a full-blown telematics would provide. So what's important to note about this application, it's not you must have both. You can have either or. And what's important too to understand is that budget cycles I know come and go, and you're able to, because it's modular, plan for the deployment of these assets. So for example, we had some of our friends in the West, they knew that they wanted the fuel experience first and the data pass second. So it took 2 years to deploy it, 2 budget years, but it worked because it fit, you know, their schedule and what they were looking to do. So it's a very modular, very simple, very easy to install system. And the benefits on the back end are massive because of the accuracy, the speed of information, and eliminating a lot of manual walking and spreadsheets, and just human intervention basically becomes a non-issue. This is just a sample of kind of what a light duty vehicle would look like. It's a plug and play. You program that device, and then it starts to talk to the system and provide data. So again, what is the most important thing in all of this is the data. So here's an example of a dashboard of a fleet. They've got 188 total vehicles. 93 are not on data pass. Okay, so of the ones that are collecting data, this is the kind of real intuitive director level, executive level, maintenance level information that people are looking for. And again, you can utilize this information to better manage a lot of things, but mostly preventive maintenance. Driver behavior is a big thing too, because you're getting events like idle time, speeding, RPMing, over RPMing, all of the KPI statistics that people want to help better manage the asset. And if driver behavior is an issue at the facilities, you can actually tie right into how they're driving that vehicle so you can make corrective action. So this is what the data looks like that comes off of the AVI. So it's really important to understand the connection between the hardware and the data and what it does on the back end for the municipality. So a lot of Canada, we've got a lot of legacy platforms out there. So, 20, 30-year-old systems that have seen better days. But again, when you're deploying old technology, you still have the manual process to deal with, which is fuel tracking, the security of those transactions, the back-end reconciliation. Those are daily, weekly, monthly challenges that you have to tackle. Employee safety. Again, it's a small thing, but walking across islands in the middle of winter when it's dark is not a safe environment. So you have to constantly manage employee safety, training behavior on how to use the system, how to reissue data and devices. So if a driver loses a card or a key for the system, you've got to constantly maintain that. Asset management, again, is the odometer input accurate or inaccurate? That impacts your asset management and your preventive maintenance schedule. So again, constant challenge. And then, of course, we call it energy management now because there's different levels of energy that are being controlled out there. So we manage all and control all of those. But, it becomes an issue for energy management when you have technology available to help minimize that. So these challenges are what the market tends to face. For our case studies, we'll go through 2. The County of Essex in southwestern Ontario, Their challenges were really with the roads and EMS group. And they had a couple of different things that they were looking for. But when we had our cross-functional session, we sat down and talked to them. What was the most important thing for you? And of all of the operators that talked about fueling and just, a pump is a pump is a pump, the one driver who was really vocal and actually had a really good case for going to ABI were the accounting team. On the back end, they explained the process that they have to go through every month, trying to fix bad data, trying to find drivers to explain, what kind of transaction was this, because it didn't make sense. So a lot of pain and back end effort on the county got them to the point where they looked at our equipment and said, this is actually going to save us overall the way that we operate the fleet. So if you look at this example, it's pretty standard across Canada where we have a fueling yard with a couple of storage tanks. You're going to have a diesel compartment, a gasoline compartment. What they deployed was a simple controller. And then on the nozzle reader itself, you can see that there, that is the AVI equipment. So their EMS group and their roads group will come into these facilities and have frictionless fueling, very little driver engagement in the system other than picking up the spout, putting it in the filling up and driving off, going to do their work. Now for the EMS group, because it was critical for them to be always on the road and not be delayed with fueling and not having to, oh, it's the middle of the night and I don't have my fuel card and I need to find a way to get fuel. This made sense for them because it provided fast, reliable authorization and kept the EMTs out on the road. So for the County of Essex, we deployed 9 locations and we'll do another one in 2024. And it's a standard, I think, that they've embraced just because it makes not just the fueling experience easy and simple, but it makes the entire process of reconciling the fuel easy and fast and effective. So that's a case study on the County of Essex. The next one, a little bit different. These guys, the city of Moncton out in the east, they called me a couple of years ago and said, hey, we're really interested in ABI. We don't have the budget for it, so we're going to plan for it now. Just help us understand what we can get from it. The goal for the team in Moncton was they wanted accurate odometer readings on those buses. It was critical for them because they have 38 buses, which, when compared to a Toronto or a Vancouver, it's not a whole lot, but that's the city of Moncton. It's a fairly large facility, and 38 buses is significant in their world. So the challenge with them was preventative maintenance schedules were not being met, and they were slipping, and they were having issues maintaining the equipment because of the process that they used, which was manual and log driven. So those processes drove them to say, let's evaluate technology that can help us. So what you're seeing here is the Kodiak is the bus terminal, their transport group. And then the 2 gentlemen here with the hard hats, they're programming the bus in the fuel bay. So again, that device is programmed one time, it's affixed to the vehicle, and it's done. So they utilize both the fueling application and the data pass application. And this is what an example of what the componentry looks like. On the left, you have the data pass, which records all of the diagnostics off the vehicle. On the right, again, is a nozzle reader. It's a very straightforward product. It just slips over the spout, depending on the size. We have a nozzle reader for each size. And you deploy the equipment, you program it once, and that's your device management. If that asset comes off the road, you remove that equipment and you program new equipment and put it on. So it's very simple, very easy. And again, you're not chasing cards and fobs and doing all device management on a constant daily basis, which makes things very simple and very easy to do. So, in summary, because we're running up to our time here, in summary, ABI really matters because it's a change in the process for the good. And doing things that have been done traditionally that are inefficient, that create a lot of back-end work, when we have ways of doing things today that are much more modern, much more efficient for the groups that have to do the work every day, it just improves your daily work. So from an accounting perspective, fuel reconciliation, internal billing of fuel back to those is really easy, very simple, because the data is clean. On the ops side, it's pretty straightforward as well. I don't know if many of you have lineups at the end of the day or the beginning of the day, but you're basically getting faster throughput because your drivers are not walking over islands to go get authorized to go back to a vehicle. So you're creating a safe, faster throughput. You're eliminating a lot of driver training because basically you have to pick up the nozzle, put it in the fill, pull the trigger, and go. That's the training for this system. So you're eliminating a lot of steps there from an HR perspective and a safety perspective. And you're actually improving that safety element as well. From a maintenance perspective, accurate automatic odometer. It's as straightforward as that. Those odometer readings are the key to preventive maintenance schedules. They dictate when that bus or vehicle comes in for service. If they're not accurate, it creates a ripple effect through the entire fleet. So having that AVI deployed really makes the maintenance group's lives a lot easier. And being alerted to a vehicle that has an issue right now versus a handwritten report or something that gets lost in the shuffle can really make an impact, especially if a vehicle's engine is going or a transmission is going. These are really key indicators. From a procurement perspective, we didn't talk too much about the supply side of the business, but tying your gauging and your storage tanks into a fuel management system, again, is another better, more efficient way of managing your supply. And, you know, we can talk more about that in one-on-ones if your teams are interested. And then again, from an IT or a data device management perspective, we're really eliminating the management of fobs and proxies, right? You're going to administer and program and deploy the proxy for AVI once for the life of the vehicle. And that's a big change in constantly managing cards with driver turnover, you know, employee retirement, constantly losing devices. That whole nightmare goes away. So, you know, in summary, a safe, accurate, frictionless fueling experience is what AVI allows for your municipality to enjoy. And, you know, we have the contract for the entire fuel management solution set. I've been going coast to coast having the same conversation. So it's nice to have multiple municipalities in one group. Saves me a little wear and tear on travel. But I'm going to move on to a Q&A period here and see if there's any questions, Tanner, in the chat or anything that we want to take on live.
Great, thanks, Matt. So I just added the events link in the chat box. You can take a look at that to see if there are any future webinars that you might be interested in attending. So for anybody who is on the call, if you'd like to ask a question, just click on that Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, type it in, and Matt will get to answer it. So yes, while we're waiting for that, there's obviously quite a lot that can be done with different systems. Is it something that a municipality needs to do all at once, or can they do a bit of a stepped, gradual approach to implementing things?
That's a good question. And so again, it's a modular product by design because we know budget cycles tend to lapse and sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't. So it can be done over time through different budget cycles. Again, we have deployments going on here today at the city of Richmond Hill. They fortunately had enough budget to get it done, so they went for everything at once. But you can do this over a year or two's period and have your entire fleet, you know, being on the automatic vehicle identification platform.
All right, so we had a question come in. How easy is it to switch over the vehicle sensor as units are replaced?
So it's a good question. So again, it's device management. So as the vehicle comes offline or goes into retirement and a new one comes on, you're going to deploy an asset identifier for the new vehicle. So they're not reusable and reprogrammable. So they're a single use for the life of that vehicle. And that's, you know, by design, because what we don't want is those devices coming off and being fraudulently used somewhere else. So when you tamper with that device, it breaks on purpose. So the programming of a unit is for the life of that vehicle. or unless it's tampered with and you'd have to deploy new. So good question.
Right. So one of the things that is pretty common in municipal procurement right now is delays with supply chain issues. So for a municipality that's looking to get some of this equipment, what type of lead times might they be looking at?
Yeah, that's another good question. So on the fuel management systems themselves, the AVI equipment, the pedestals, we're about 6 weeks. So pretty standard lead times. We've got a big inventory at our factory. On our dispense applications for any of the dispensers that are out there, we're about 8 weeks now. It's supply chain did bite us a little bit through COVID, but we're back to a business as usual mode right now. And while I've got everybody here together, there's going to be some announcements too coming out about some new technology in the dispensing application. I'll share that with the Canoe teams, but we have a new dispenser, modernized dispensing platform coming out next year. So that's big news from us there.
Right. All right, we'll give it another little bit to see if any other questions come in, but you must have done a good job presenting. There aren't too many.
There's one.
Yeah. All right. Is the software cloud-based?
It is. It is. Now we have two forms, right? So there's the legacy server-based platform that has been around for 100 years. So that was modern technology back when it first came out. But we do have a server-based application, which will work with this AVI technology. But our enterprise platform is the cloud, because again, it eliminates IT having to maintain servers on site, managing software, upgrades, hardware upgrades to manage that software on that server. So we can give you both applications. We prefer, obviously, the cloud because it's cheaper and easier to deploy. And so that's where we push most people. But if you're not comfortable in the cloud yet, or you haven't migrated to the cloud, we can certainly put you on a server.
All right, up next, what is the cost roughly for a 300 unit fleet?
Yeah, so I usually break it down by cost per vehicle. And so that'll help you do the math there. I would highly suggest we connect after, because there are some questions that we would have to ask to fully understand. But the typical device, the fuel device, so the ring or the cube, those are all from a membership perspective. That pricing is available to you through the portal. I'm going to throw a number off the top of my head. It's right around $60 US for the fueling cube or ring. The nozzle reader itself, that's running about $300 per nozzle. So, for a fleet of 300, the math is pretty straightforward. Highly recommend a one-on-one consult there though too, because there's some questions we'd want to ask, and there may be some savings through the program that I can't do here with you. They're better off in a one-on-one situation. For everybody that is on, we'll make this presentation available to you on request as well. So if you reach out to me, I can provide you this in a PDF format as well, if that helps you and your teams. If when you take this information back to your groups and they want to have a consultation, again, I'm not the salesperson, I'm the factory representative. We make this product. We can go through your entire fleet assessment. Takes about half an hour, and then walk you through what it looks like to deploy. And then if that next step is let's get a quote, we can certainly work that up. All of your member pricing is public, so it's available to you on the portal. And if you need help finding that, just let me know.
All right, so with no further questions, I think we can wrap it up now. I'll be sending out an email shortly with a link to the video archive of this event, as well as contact information for myself and Matt. So if you have any further questions for either Canoe, LAS, or Gilbarco, you'll know how to reach out to us. So thank you very much, everybody, for taking the time to join us. Thanks, Matt, for presenting, and we'll see you at the next one.
Thanks, everybody.